I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but like when something like you're suffering at something and it's uncomfortable and it's making you face things and it's completely new and you're completely out of your comfort zone and it's like it's not pleasurable yet. But there's something about it that something deeper inside of you is like, this is what you're looking for. Keep going.
Hey, it's Sandesh here from the Kundalini Yoga Club. We are here with the podcast Kundalini Awakening, from Karma to Dharma. And today I have a lady on the podcast who I was wanting to know more about, but somehow we just didn't have time at the Kundalini Yoga Festival in France. But luckily she said, okay, I'll be on the podcast. Brittany, I welcome you to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. I feel very honored to have been asked. When you asked me at the festival, and you thought, I came to you when you thought about who you would ask, and I thought, oh wow, I felt very honored in that moment. So thank you.
I'll thank my soul. My soul always gives me the sign, and I just ask, and I bow, and then you're on the podcast, and I finally get to know you. We just spoke a little bit before so that I know what to talk about. Thank you so much. And wow, there's a lot to know. This podcast is definitely one exciting. Uh, Tell me about you before Europe.
Before Europe.
Yes, because
Okay.
now you're in Madrid, right?
Yes, I've been in Spain 12 years. I lived 2 years in the south in Huelva, and I've been here in Madrid for 10. I came when I was 26. Myself before Spain, before Europe. That's interesting. A little bit why I came to Spain. My grandmother and my grandfather, my dad's parents were from Spain. They both have passed away now, but I always had this fascination with coming. I thought one day in my life I'm going to go, whether it was to travel or to live. I didn't know, but I was always asking my abuela, my grandmother, questions about her life in Spain. And I'm the only one of my generation, really. I mean, some of my cousins speak a little bit of Spanish. My brother understands it, but I was always studying. I was always really interested in the cultures and the history. And I was like, one day I'm going. Me before Europe, I guess. In what
Where were you
way?
born?
Because
Where
what?
were you born?
I was born in Nevada, in Reno, west coast of the U.S. I mean, it's kind of they call it the biggest little city in the world. And it has all of the things that Las Vegas has. I mean, everybody knows Nevada because of Las Vegas. Casinos, prostitution, desert, whatever. And we have that too, but Reno is more of a university town, a lot of outdoor sports, mountains, lakes, rivers. And I mean, that's where I come from.
And were you a lot in the mountains and the nature and the rivers?
Yes. Actually, I think one of my most happiest memories of childhood is going hiking with my dad. I still love to do this. It's one of my favorite things to do on a Sunday. We would make a huge breakfast, typical American pancakes or waffles or whatever we would make. And then he'd take us for a hike. And my brother and I, when we were younger, like we would kind of complain and be like, no, Dad, we don't want to go. But we'd always end up having a wonderful time. And I think one of the saddest things is when that stopped. And I still miss it, like miss those moments with him. But I always think, like, why do I love the mountains so much? And it's because of that. I love to climb. I'm 39. I love to climb trees. I love to climb rocks. I love to play in the river. I all of these things. And it's like one of those pure states that I remember from that. And I love to camp. I love all of those things. So I can attribute that to him.
So being all into nature and Mother Earth, have you always been like that? Or
I know that I have always loved it. And I there is just this immediately, like being in that environment, I feel like myself. And I think I got a little bit disconnected from that in my young adulthood because I was working all the time. I was going to school. I had a million hobbies. I'm still kind of like that, but I didn't go as much. And I would always try to make time. I mean, there's a nice river that runs through my hometown. I always go for runs there. You can actually go hiking in places in the city. So I would do my best, but I I think I lost that for a little while, but I have, as now that I've gotten older, like getting back into that, and I find that it's not even just a hobby. I just need it. I need to go and hug trees. I need to go, even if it's just in the park. Like I go to the park almost every day near my house, and um need to put my feet in the grass, and it's how I feel like I center and I can really balance myself that way, especially working in an office and with screens all the time. It's not great for me. I know it. I probably should have been a park ranger in a national forest somewhere or something, and I still dream about that sometimes. But it, like, even on my lunch break, I go to the park for half an hour, whatever, and it immediately makes me feel better and like just rebalances my energy. So yeah, I think it's always been a part of me.
Hmm. You said that for a while you, and that I guess that was the time before you discovered Kundalini. We talked about that you had some quite challenging times within this time of disconnection. Can you share something about that?
Yeah. Oh, how far back you want to go? Okay.
That's
Well,
up to you.
I mean, right. I'm like, I feel honestly, I think I've always been a very emotional, sensitive, deeply feeling person, but I didn't come from not a culture nor a family environment where that was really allowed. So I think disconnection happened early, and I learned to turn my emotions off. Not really, but I mean, I had two levels for a very long time. I had either fine or explosive angry. And I didn't know how to manage any feelings. I didn't know how to communicate. I didn't know how to express myself because of things I had been through and things I had learned through my family dynamics. And so, a little bit like what we talked about before, I wasn't able to feel. So I don't think I even knew I was disconnected. I thought I was just normal living life and kind of going through the motions. But then I would have these moments where I would explode, and all of this, pent up, repressed emotion that I was not able to do anything with would just come out. And then I would feel such shame around that because I knew deep down, I knew it was violent. I knew it was not how I wanted to be, but I literally did not have the tools to be better. Like I didn't know how to be better. I wanted to be better, but I didn't know how. I had no examples. And it took me a really long time to actually even get in touch with myself or to even start that. I think I must have been maybe 21, 22 years old. And I don't know if you remember the book or I think it was a DVD too, The Secret, when they talked about the law of attraction and all of these things and your thoughts and all of it, whatever. I have an aunt she's kind of into all of that stuff too. And she sent it to my mom and she and I, we watched it, and I thought, what? Like, my thoughts and my feelings and my this, and I have the power to change my experience. And it fascinated and also terrified me at the same time, because it was the first time that I actually became aware of what was happening inside of me. And it freaked me out because then I was like, oh my God, I'm so negative. Oh my God, what am I doing? Like, and again, I had no idea what to do with any of this. But it was from that moment that I think the ball started turning, right? It started to put me in line with other things, because from there I started to play with meditation. I had a friend who was a Buddhist, and he took me to his temple. And I started doing yoga, but I started with like hatha, vinyasa, and all these things, doing all, like, really just trying to understand, I think humans in general, we have this need, whether we are conscious of it or not, that we have this need for connection. It's not a secret. We all, I think, a deep longing in us to belong, to feel, to be connected to, I don't know, like, I guess I was always searching. I always had this feeling of I was searching for something, some kind of answer, some kind of help, some kind of answer to these questions that I had, that I didn't know. I didn't know how to connect. I didn't know how. And even meditation freaked me out because my whole nervous system freaked out. My mind went crazy. I'm like, oh my God. And so I rejected it for a while. And then but I would always come back, because something inside of me is like, you want this, you need this, keep going, keep going, keep going, right? And I had to work through this fear. And little by little, I was like, okay, I'm going to do a little bit better, try a little bit more, try something different, read something else. And it's how I discovered Kundalini, actually, by accident. It's kind of a funny thing, because it's when I started to really get into meditation that I was like, I wanted to read everything about it. And I was at the bookstore, and I bought the wrong book. I don't remember what book I was trying to buy, but it was not the wrong book, obviously. It's called Meditation is Medicine, and it's written by, I can't remember his name, Dr. something scene. I don't remember, but he practices in New Mexico, and he's also a Kundalini teacher. This book is pretty famous. I mean, it's I don't know if you know it, but in the book, he talks about his experience with the combination of Western medicine and what he prescribes through Kundalini for his patients. And he talks all about the effects of everything on the body. He has testimonials from his patients. He had practices in the back of the book. And I thought to myself, I'm like, what is this Kundalini? What is this? What is this? And it was right before I was coming to Spain. So I read this book and I thought nothing of it. I was like, okay, whatever, more meditation, fine. And
Just
then,
a question in between.
yeah,
Were you doing this search of through the meditational world and everything by yourself, or did you have help, or because sometimes it can be people don't know where to start when you start looking for these answers.
yeah. I mean, I didn't come. My dad was raised Catholic. My mom kind of bounced in and out of churches and stuff. But I didn't have any of this teaching of spirituality. I knew about religion, but I was not brought up religious. I didn't really have too much of a relationship with God, other than kind of a philosophical idea of what that was. I had read the Bible a little bit. So I really went, I mean, I had some friends who were kind of interested in similar things, more like the metaphysics, all of these kind of tarot, all these kinds of things. So we were playing with all of these kinds of ideas, not really having any idea of what we were doing. But I felt very alone on that journey because I didn't know who to talk to. And I think it's when I started as an adult choosing to go to therapy as well, because I needed help to talk about something, because there wasn't a space in which I felt safe enough to do that. And I didn't know, like, I was like, they're not going to understand me. And I felt crazy most of the time, and which is that complete rejection of whatever I was discovering. And I said, oh my God. So I was going to therapy looking for help, right? Because again, I didn't come from a family dynamic where asking for help was a thing. And if it was asking for help, it was shameful.
Money.
Or money,
Shameful.
or it was begging, or it was, I felt like even admitting I needed help was not something I was able to do until very recently. Because I mean, Americans were hyper independent, do everything by yourself. The more you can suffer, it's like a virtue we have, and it's not great. And I very much had this mindset that, I was raised to be the strong, independent, blah, and so it is lonely to be like that. And while I do believe there is some work we have to do by ourselves, and you have to go through it yourself, I do recognize that had I maybe had more support, or somebody who knew, maybe it wouldn't have been such a difficult journey, if that makes sense.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So no, I don't know. I just kind of knew that I needed to do something different. It was interesting. At 19 years old, I was starting university. I was in a very difficult time of my life. And I woke up one morning. I wasn't speaking to my father at this point. And I woke up thinking to myself, I want to be happier. I want to be freer. I want to feel love. I want to have people. And I called my dad, and we hadn't spoken in I don't know how long. And I told him this. And I said, Dad, I don't know what this means. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to bridge this gap that I feel between us, or between all of us. I mean, the whole family, really. But I was like, but I want to be happy, and I want to try. And I think it's been that, like, this whole process of trying to get back to connection, trying to get back to love, trying to get back to myself, trying to feel this connection that I didn't even know. Like, I don't think I had words to describe this empty, this sad, this alone feeling that one goes through on this journey until you find yourself again. You find your home, and it's all inside. And I wasn't used to exploring the inner world ever. I rejected. I did everything not to feel until it was not a choice not to feel anymore.
You hit
And
rock bottom.
yeah, oh, a few times in life, a few times. But yeah, I think
Was there a depression? Would you call that depression or yeah?
oh, I am a person who I've suffered with anxiety and depression my whole life for different things and living it, and it's manifested in different ways. I didn't know it when I was younger. But I had my first anxiety attack at 8, and I had no idea what was going on. But I came from I'm a child of divorce, child of alcoholic. I mean, there's a lot of things here. But I very much shut down to protect myself. And then, like I said before, like, you know, you can only repress for so long until your whole body freaks out. And mine manifested like that for a while. And then I would try to control it. And then I would get depressed because I couldn't control it anymore. And it would just take over. And this happened to me a few times in life. And the most recent one that absolutely, like, completely was a blessing, but the worst time of my life was over the last few years. And right after the pandemic, which is a very difficult time for everyone, or was a very difficult time. And I have talked about this quite a lot, but I feel like the emotional consequences of that time, it's not talked about enough. And I mean, people dying alone, people not hugging anymore, people looking at each other like viruses. It would people being locked in their homes. I mean, it was just wearing masks. It's just, there's so much repercussion, like emotional repercussion of those kinds of things, because we're not meant to live like that. And I suffered it a lot. I was in a bad living situation. I had lost my job. I mean, just all of these things. And it brought me into, when I finally went back to work and went back into the world, I was again with the panic attacks. And it was the first time, you know, I had gone to therapy. I mean, like with my family when I was really young after my parents' divorce, and then all throughout my life in different periods. But I had never admitted, like, so fully that I needed help, and that I was really afraid to ever need medication. I was really afraid to ever need anything to feel good. And I remember one time when I was looking for help again in my process for looking for answers, I was with a therapist, and she asked me if I felt like I needed medication. And she's recommended a psychiatrist to me who, after one session of talking to me and like checking some things off a list, tried to tell me that I was bipolar. And I was like, no, I'm not bipolar. I mean, I was suffering, but I'm not bipolar. Not that there's anything wrong with that, right? There's nothing wrong with having any kind of anything. But I knew that in myself that I was like, this is not right. So I went and did all of this research about it. And I read every book I could find. And I was like, no. So I rejected it. And I remember her telling me, she's like, I don't know why you're here then. She's like, if you don't take medication, she's like, you're going to become schizophrenic. You'll never graduate university. You'll never do anything with your life. And yeah. And I was like 20 at that time.
Wow.
Yeah. So you can imagine my rejection towards all of that. I was like, fuck it. I'm never, ever going to go. I don't need help. I don't need medication. I don't need anything. I'm going to be fine forever. And this was my
Mantra.
strength. Yeah. My motto in life, right? I was like, no, I can do anything. I can handle everything. La, 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 la. And then when I couldn't, because I couldn't function, I went to my doctor, and she put me on anti-anxiety medication for the first time in my life, which was like, I was kind of proud of myself, because I'm like, okay, this is a big step for you. And it stopped the panic attacks, but then it sent me into a deep, deep, deep depression, like really deep depression. And so I went on antidepressants. And the moment I felt better, I told my doctor, I was like, I don't need this anymore. I'm fine. And we slowly went off of them, but it was not the time. I needed to give it more time. And I went into an even deeper depression after that. And I just kept getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And I gained a lot of weight. My whole body was inflamed. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, but I couldn't stop gaining weight. I was just like this. I felt completely out of control. And this is after I had done my Kundalini training. This is only like 3 years ago, but I hadn't integrated anything properly. So it was finally my body telling me to wake up, to get back to slowing down, basics, practice, all of these things, community, because I was still very isolated. And coming off the pandemic, we were all isolated in our own ways, you know. So I went back on medication, and then I got a different job. I thought, okay, I'll work from home. Maybe this is better. Okay, because I was teacher training at the time, and for teachers, not for Kundalini, but for just people who wanted to be teachers. And I started doing content creation for a language application, and it was very high stress. It was very mental. It was not good for me. And within a month of changing jobs, I was fired, I was dumped, and I lost my apartment. So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So what happened? Well, I had to do things differently, and I had to get reconnected to myself, but like in a way that I had never done it. And then I had to completely change every belief I had. I had to ask for all the help on all the levels. I had to lean into people. I had to surrender. I needed to just, it was an opportunity to restart 100%. And what saved me? Well, going to a Kundalini ashram in Portugal. And it's how I really reconnect, because I think I'd been meditating at that time, but I've had an interesting relationship with Kundalini, to be honest with you. And it's been a very difficult relationship with me and
Roller
the
coaster.
practice. Sorry?
A roller coaster.
Oh, good Lord. Because when I found that book, I left it alone. And then my first summer back in the States, after I had been in Spain for a year, I found the book again, and I brought it back with me and started reading it. And I thought, this is interesting. So I started trying to do the kriyas and the meditations and the long time sunshines in the back. And I'm like trying to sing it. I had no idea what I was doing. But I was trying it out, and I was like, oh, this is really interesting. So I was doing a lot of research about Kundalini, and I was like, I should try a class. Maybe I should do something with this. Right. And so I actually found there was a studio in my apartment at the time. I was in Madrid still. There was a studio that had classes right down the street from my house. So I was like, great, let's go try it. Hated it. Hated every second of it, because it was so intense. It was so confronting. I got so angry. I'm like, there's this woman, she's wearing a turban, she's making me chant. What's going on? Right? I was just complete rejection of the practice. Complete, because I was still very disconnected at that point. I mean, yes, meditation, yes, I was trying things, yes, okay, but I was still very much out of sync with my own feelings. I still was there. And I was, what was I, 28, 29 at the time. But I kept going back to class. I hated it, but I kept going back. And I was like, I kept going back. Hated it every time for 2 weeks.
Wait. I have a question.
Tell me.
What in you gets you to go back while you're hating it?
I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but like when something, like you're suffering at something and it's uncomfortable, and it's making you face things, and it's completely new, and you're completely out of your comfort zone, and it's like it's not pleasurable yet, but there's something about it, that something deeper inside of you is like, this is what you're looking for. Keep going. Maybe the keep up came early. I'm not sure. But I still, to this day, I wanted to quit every time, but I kept saying, all right, I'm going to go to another class. Something deeper and more profound. I don't know. A bigger, higher, whatever, knew better than I did. And I followed it. And after 2 weeks of class, I was like, I have to learn more about this. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what this is. I found the teacher training here in Madrid. And I contacted my teachers, and I told them, I was like, look, I've got no experience in this, but I'm fascinated by this. And do you think I could do the training? And I signed up for teacher training after 2 weeks of classes. I was like, what? And then it was the worst year and a half of my life, but the most beautiful. You know what I mean? Just because I walked in, everybody's in white. Everybody's been doing this kind of yoga for I don't know how many years. And I'm like, oh yeah, I read a book and took, 4 classes. Woohoo. And and I started teacher training, and it was just, I'm like, oh my God, where, what? And from that point, it completely changed my life. Just like, and I sometimes think about doing teacher training again, just to see what it would be like this time around, and as the version of myself I am now, because that version, that girl that did it in 2015, 16, 14, yeah. She was disconnected. She was still very much, repressed, and she still was afraid, and she didn't know how to open up in the situation, and she didn't know how to really connect. She was trying, she was working step by step, but now, I it's saved me in a lot of ways, and many different, like, this practice has saved me in many ways, in the community and the people, and it just, it keeps calling me back. So, and now after, the last few years, I've gotten really involved in the festival. I've, more, I have my own practice I do myself, but I teach, I do it. And I just am like, it's a very important tool in my life.
Interesting. Let me focus a bit on that community part, because you said
Yeah.
it just kept calling you back and it was important, but you also mentioned community. What did community do for you?
Yeah. um Community, and like, it helped me to heal and to recognize that I don't want to be alone, because I am, I think a trauma response or a coping mechanism that I've had, I tend to be a person who isolates and spends a lot of time alone. And it's the only way I really knew how to deal with my feelings in the beginning, because I was having a hard time processing. So I'm like, I felt unworthy of community. I felt unworthy of love. I felt like I'm a terrible person, like all these things that were inside of me. How can anybody love this? Nobody wants to be my friend. I had this narrative in my head that I thought it was just better that I be by myself, because I didn't know how to be around people, and I didn't know how to let them in. And so it was just this pattern that I had, this belief that I had. And when I went to the ashram after the complete mental breakdown, I think that not that I mean, it took me a while, but those first months there, being able to have a really simple routine, to be able to have people to talk to, even just sit in silence and somebody hold your hand, giving you hugs all day, and listening to other people's stories, knowing that I wasn't alone, that I wasn't the only person going through things like this. I was like, wow, maybe it's okay to open up to people. Maybe it's okay to let them in. Maybe you need this more than you think that you do. And it's become more and more evident to me that I want to live in community. I want to have people to do life with, and have traditions and customs and build things together. And it's just, I very much recognize that I still need me time. I'm very much introverted. I might not seem like it, but I am. But I do want people around, and I want people to ask how I'm doing, and I want to ask how people are doing, and I want to be known. Whereas before I didn't. I wanted to just kind of disappear, because I felt like there was too much, like I was too big, I was too much. And these stories that we receive, that I received, because I was always too something. So I just became smaller and smaller and smaller until I exploded, and I couldn't. And now I feel like I'm like, no, I want to be a part of something big. I want to be big. I want to shine. I want to give that. And I want to be around people who feel this too. And Kundalini gave this to me. And And slowly, the more that I open up, I keep meeting the most amazing people. I mean, like, look at us now. I mean, like, like me a few years ago may have never said yes to something like this. And I'm grateful for it. And I think the more that I become comfortable with myself and that I love myself, that I can appreciate everything about me, the good and the bad, dark, light, ugly, beautiful, whatever, that it allows your people to come, and it's important. Nobody was meant to do this life alone. I don't care what our societies tell us. And it's like, like we're not meant to be alone in these things. And I think real healing can come from community when you know that you're safe with people and that there is love.
Yeah, high five on that. I remember a high 10. I kind of remember I was in a divorce, and I also was looking to step away from modern career,
Yeah,
going more into spirituality, and it felt so lonely. But
it is.
once you meet these people who are in training or in a sangat or in a 1-day workshop,
Mm,
you're not alone, right? And it's scary, but the more you open up, they open up.
mm,
Ah,
yeah, it is. It's this effect that I relax and I breathe, you relax and you breathe, and it's when real connection is possible. Because if we're both protecting ourselves and in defense and guarded and our heart is blocked, I mean, I understand the need for this sometimes because, again, the world can be hard. It can be, and not everybody deserves these beautiful, soft parts of you. But I also realize I'm like, no, I just want to be this person. I can take care of myself. I don't have to be hard to take care of myself. I can breathe and relax and connect. And if the other person is unable, then that's okay. They are where they are. But when I am around people and I do this, it gives space, and you can be that and I can be that, and we can hug, and it was beautiful, and share, and human to human, heart to heart. I deeply desire that for the rest of my life, to have that.
I guess that's what you come to share then, right? How to be heart to heart.
Yes, and it's interesting because sometimes when I was first learning how to teach Kundalini, I was like, oh yeah, but I'm not super strict. I'm not like this hardcore teacher. I'm not wearing my turban's not perfect and then whatever. But everybody always says like, but your classes are so loving. Like you hold the space so nicely. You give so much love, and it's felt when you teach. And I had to be okay with that too. That I'm like, that's my version. That's me. That's what I can offer. And if you want this kind of teacher or that kind of teacher, you want this kind of practice, it's all available. And that's why it's beautiful, because we all have something. You aren't going to teach the same way I'm going to teach, and that's amazing. And that's why it's special, because we can all give. That is the gift, right? To give us to the world, to give our uniqueness to the world, and to be like, once you find that and once you're okay with it, that's the purpose of life. It doesn't matter what you do. It's just to give that in all of the things that you are involved in, and even if it's just smiling going down the street or holding a door open or whatever, giving a compliment, like, just, you're
Satnam.
unique. Yeah,
Satnam, right?
exactly. Yeah, get in touch with the Satnam and be good with that, and go through life with that. Yeah, that energy.
Wow. So Kundalini freaked you out,
Completely.
but somehow you came back,
Yeah.
and it helped you to reconnect to all of you.
Yes, very
And
much.
who is Brittany now in all of her?
That's a good question. Um, I am an intensely multifaceted woman. And I have gotten to know all of these parts in this, like, I threw myself into some very deep work in the last couple of years and exploring different things um, alongside of Kundalini. And Brittany now is who she was always meant to be, I think. And I'm still growing, and I'm still making shifts and learning to do things better, which I think takes time even in itself. Like, you can be aware of all of your nonsense, but until you can really make a different decision and act differently, that is work all by itself. But I I don't know. I'm a musician. I'm a dancer. I'm a yogi. I'm a cook. I'm a writer. I'm a businesswoman. I mean, I'm all of these things, and I'm an artist, and I'm a little girl who likes to play on the swings in the park, and I am a deeply sensual, wild woman who loves being naked in the forest. And I'm a lot of things. And the only difference is that they have always existed, these parts. But the only thing is now is that I hold them and I let them express themselves and I give them space because they all need my attention. I do believe that all of us are many things and that it is important, however that looks for any person, but to allow these little pieces of us to have a voice and to not reject them, even if, the wild woman who likes to be naked in the forest can't be in the office. That's okay, but maybe she can wear red instead of black or whatever just like to let all of it be okay and to hold them. And I love that I know myself as well as I do. And I'm a person who has an intense amount of self-awareness, and I love it. And I'm very proud to be able to have developed that ability to know them. I actually, like, the best way I could maybe paint a picture of this is in a meditation a few months back, I had this vision come to me where it was the current version of me and all of the other little versions. And I was sitting like around a fire and they were dancing around it and I was holding the space for them. And I was like their queen and they were, celebrating and laughing and yelling like crazy girls. And I just like, that's the best way I can feel. Like the current version of me holds space for all of those other parts.
So wonderful.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hey,
And I feel that's my job, is to take care of them.
yeah, your real job, right?
Yeah, that's my real job. That's what
Yeah,
I do. Yeah.
awesome. Awesome. Hey, you told me just before,
Yeah.
during the Kundalini practice,
Mm.
mantras,
Yeah.
they hit you.
Oh,
Share us what happened? What are mantras and what's your favorite mantra? Can
yeah.
you tell?
I love chanting in general. I love the feeling of it. I love the sound of it. I love it with music. I love it just by myself. I love it in group. Um, I think it because in the beginning, I mean, I tried all kinds of different techniques for meditation. There are many and they're all lovely. But I think what mantra gave to me is I felt it vibrating in my heart. I felt it vibrating inside of me and it gave me something to focus on while my mind was still being trained and relaxed and calmed. And I remember in the beginning too, like in my training, when I didn't really know too much about chanting and mantras and not yoga, and I didn't know what I was really doing. And sometimes when I felt like I couldn't sustain the mantra, I couldn't chant, I would listen and I would still receive it. I just felt this vibration and it woke something up in me. And since then I don't know. I just love it. And that's why I love going to the festival and to have all of those people chanting together. It is the craziest thing I've ever seen. And it's the most beautiful. And I love it. Um, my favorite mantra is the Harinam Satnam mantra. And there's a reason because of that. I love it, connecting to the creativity and flow of life, your intuition. But my very, very first festival that I went to, we drove from Spain and we arrived right at the time of the all camp meditation and they were singing in the tent. And I don't know if you know Guru Das, but she is an amazing musician. She has the most incredible voice. I am fully in love with her. Like, she is amazing. And we arrived, we were taking our stuff out of the car and I heard her singing. I dropped all of my things, ran to the tent, and I was like, I have no idea what this is, but I sat down and we were doing this mantra that was the all camp meditation, my first camp or my first festival. And we had celestial communication with it, which I also really, really love celestial communication because I feel like I get even deeper. I don't know, like, it's just amazing. And I cried so hard. I felt it. I heard the people, I felt the chanting, everybody's moving, and her presence holding the group. I was like, oh my God, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And I still feel it. I have a recording of her from that festival. And every time I chant it, it brings me right back to that. And it just fills my heart so much. And I don't know, my chest expands. I just feel huge when I chant that mantra.
And you didn't even know what it meant.
I had no idea. I had no idea what was going on. I mean, it was in 2017. I went with a friend, and she had never done Kundalini before, but she was visiting me from the States. And I was like, dude, I'm going to this festival. Come with me. And she's like, great, fine. And I had no idea what it was. I had no idea. I had finished my training. I had done all my things, but I thought, this is yes. It was a full body yes to all of that. And since then, I still repeat that for 40 days every now and again. And I love it.
Wow.
Mm.
I can completely feel the vibration. You're right. There's something very magical about these mantras.
Yes.
You don't need to understand. It
No.
will hit you if you just open up to it, right?
Yes. The same thing with the japji. It took me forever to learn the japji. I still am not great at it, but it's just, and chanting in a group, just to feel that, especially when you're inside and it just vibrates the whole room. I love to do it outside too, but it takes you somewhere, and it's like, I don't even have words for it. You have to live it, and we all live it differently, but magical is a really great way to say it, because it is something, I think, so primal within us, so very, it's like it hits you on a cellular level, and it just, I don't know, it's like, I feel like sparkles are in my body or something. Like, I don't know. It's just like, but yeah.
And it's something we all share. I've
Yeah.
seen so many people from all kinds of places, stories, backgrounds,
Languages like that. And
Yeah.
that's another thing that's so beautiful about them, is that we can pronounce them regardless of the languages that as our native language. And I think that it's kind of like math, right? Math is the same in all countries. Like, these mantras can connect us all, because again, maybe we can't talk, but we can chant together. And that is something that is intensely special.
Especially when we do it together in the morning, like
Oh
6
my
a.m.,
gosh.
right?
You know what? I am not a morning person. I try very hard to be, but I love getting up for sadhana. I do. And to do it in group, I would love to do it in person every day. I would. But I mean, sometimes I join online ones or whatever, and it's nice. And it's beautiful when people do that. But morning practice, one thing I miss about the ashram is getting up, going to sadhana every day. Like, it's a very special experience.
And what do you drink after sadhana?
Well, before sadhana, I drink water, and hot water with lemon and salt. And then I just have more water after I'm done. Because I don't usually get hungry until about 2 hours after I wake up. So I don't really, and I still am a coffee drinker. I do love tea, but I do drink a cup of coffee in the morning for breakfast, but not usually until about an hour or so after that. So water. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So as we come to an end, I want to thank you for such a revealing, such a vulnerable story. It's. I mean, I think you're the first to talk about deep depression.
Really?
Yeah. So thank you so much. Can you reach out to those that have experience with maybe negativity in life and don't know how to get out of it?
Yeah.
And maybe if somehow they listen to this podcast, what would you say to them?
Yeah. First, mental and emotional health are my greatest passions in life and one of my biggest struggles. And I humbly say that I've brought myself out of depression a few times, but the last time, for anybody, because it's so isolating when anybody is going through that, like, because you have no energy, you hate yourself, the things that go through your head, And I know depression is different for everybody. I'm not trying to say it's only one way to experience that, but you're not yourself. And it's hard to receive love when you don't feel like yourself. And it's hard to open up, and it's hard to feel safe, and it's hard not to feel like a burden. But if I could tell anybody going through anything like that, if you can find it in yourself, even if it's one person, let yourself be helped. And know that you are worth loving no matter what. And being human is hard sometimes. None of us come out of life without scars. And the thing that saved me was finally admitting that I couldn't and didn't want to do it alone. And I allowed people to love me in my worst condition. And sometimes people will really surprise you for the good or for the bad. And either they'll go, which thank you, or they'll stay. And you really, in your darkest moments, you'll see the people who really care about you if you allow it. Because I know it's hard to allow that. Because you feel unworthy, you feel ugly, you feel like a monster. I know I did. And I think it's just, if you can find it in yourself to reach for help and love, it's really the only way. And maybe you need medication to help, and maybe you need therapy to help, and to go slow and take it step by step, because the healing journey is not, I think people think there's like an end point. There's no end point. It's a lifelong choice. And some days you're better than others, and that's okay. But just to know that you matter and you're worth the work.
I'm crying. Oh my God.
I wish that I could hug everybody who ever felt like that, because I know what it's like. And I hope that one day I'll have a space where I can help people like that. And I'll get there eventually. But I think most of the time, most people, regardless of what they're going through, a hug does a lot.
That's why we love hugging each other when
Oh
we
my
come
God.
across each other at the festival, right?
It's so good. Like, uh, people need it. People need just to be witnessed and to be felt. And that's very human. And there's a lot of people who can't receive a hug, and it's sad to me. But even if it's a little bit, like, hugs are magic too. Monsters are magic, hugs are magic, all of it. And I hope that people will allow themselves to have those things.
So
'Cause
was Kundalini worth the danger?
oh, of course. Of course. And it's funny that even in the suffering of these prior, when it's really hard, or when you're really like freaking out inside and your whole nervous system is like, quit, 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 and you keep going and you find that moment of relief and it just kind of relaxes. I think that's life in general, right? Like you can do it. Like, face it, it's not that bad. It's scary and it's uncomfortable, and I know our mind is there to make us comfortable, but what's on the other side is like I don't know if you want to call it nirvana, utopia, paradise, whatever you want to call it, but freedom is what I've experienced. And if I had to go through it 100 more times, I'd do it, because I wouldn't give up where I'm at now for anything. And it's been hard. It's been a lot of work, but yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much. So touching.
Thank
I
you.
really wish you to shine more, and thank you for coming to this podcast from where you've come and now sitting in this podcast. And whoever listens to it, I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed it very much. Thank you, Brittany.
I loved this. Thank you, Sandesh. Like this, to keep doing this work, because stories are important. And I think it's another way for people to connect too, because people will see themselves in me. Like I saw myself in you, and I saw myself in other stories that I've listened to at the podcast. And it's just to give voices to this, and thank you. I've really, really enjoyed this.
Mm.
And however I can support the Kundalini Club, I'm in.
Satnam, and we are happy that you are one of the voices. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.